if you have your handouts, great. If not, it is up here on the screen, and some of it will be familiar and some of it's new. Oh, can you hear me okay? Not so much on that side? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and start. If you're having trouble, wave your hand. Debbie's going to check on some things here, and hopefully we're okay. To start off with, I'm going to go through the first few slides are about the Supplemental Annual Financial Report, which you know is a form that you use to enable you to gather the information that about the funds that are not on your funds ledger, but are part of the county government as a whole. And that way you can report complete financial information in the gateway. We talked last year about how you determine which additional funds you are going to pick up information on through this Supplemental Annual Financial Report. And what we recommend is that you look at the last State Board of Accounts audit report, the annual report, not your supplemental auditor's report if you had one, but the annual report that has the financial statements in it. Look at the combining report that lists all of your funds and their activities, and any of the funds that you do not have on your books to report in the gateway, you will want to pick those up. And that should include the treasurer's after settlement collections, as well as any of the funds that don't flow through your funds ledger. Things that I'm talking about are like the sheriff's commissary fund. None of that ever flows through your books. There are some that, like the recorder has probably maybe a fund at the bank where they hold monies and then they clear them out and give you a report of collections every month. You're not going to pick up the recorders because their funds do eventually flow into the funds that you have at your funds ledger. The one that is tricky, I believe, is the clerk's trust. It's kind of a hybrid. Some of the money that the clerk has does end up flowing into your funds. Others of it goes to the state. It goes to individuals that have judgments, and so you're going to go ahead and pick up the clerks, even though it's a little bit of a hybrid. Okay. When we looked at audit reports, these were the funds that we found commonly needed to have a supplemental annual financial report. And I also wanted to point out one that caught us off guard just a bit. In some counties this past year, I know some of you would have maybe even had an audit comment on this, that you, if you have a treasurer of your redevelopment commission, the county redevelopment commission, that keeps the funds for the redevelopment commission separately, and they're not in the county treasury, then you need to get a supplemental annual financial report from the redevelopment commission treasurer. Some of you have that fund on your books. Some of you, they have a separate treasurer. They are allowed to appoint a separate treasurer who is allowed to disperse those monies for the TIF allocation areas and the TIF projects. So if they have chosen to have this outside treasurer, you'll need to get financial information from that treasurer to report in the gateway. The supplemental AFR report has not changed from last year. These are the things that are included in that report. It does say that it's due to you by January 20th. If you need that information sooner than that, you may change that date, and we have told all of the officials that we've trained this year that you may give them separate instructions on that date. So that is something you can change. The treasurer's reporting on the supplemental annual financial report is a little different than all of the others, and it doesn't exactly look like it follows the instructions on the form. We have trained them that they are to include the after settlement collections, which would be all of their tax collections by taxing district, plus their other sources on their cash book. And those monies need to be reported on this AFR, but in a little different manner. Basically, they will take the balance that they had December 31st of the previous year, that's their beginning balance, they will put that in. They can take that from their cash book, and it should also match what they reported last year unless there were some adjustments made. And then that amount, no matter what it is the amount that they will report as other disbursements. Because basically they're removing that amount that already flowed through the settlements and out the door, and they're wiping that off the records. Then they will look at the December 31st of 2013, and that will be their ending cash balance that they're holding that's outside of your funds ledger, and that amount, no matter what it is, will be the amount of the other receipts that they post. They will not have the full year's tax collections being reported as receipts and disbursements. They will just be reversing the prior year balance and adding the current year balance at the end of the year. Now, the other supplemental annual financial reports look more like what you would expect for a financial report. It has a beginning balance, the total receipts for the year, total disbursements from that fund for the year, and an ending balance, and it should add across. It should sum across. So that's things like the jail commissary that the sheriff holds and the inmate trust. So you have an example of that. I wanted to talk a bit about the Gateway 100R report. You did that on Gateway the first time last year. We have made some updates and upgrades to that process. So I wanted to go through those changes. If you're not familiar with it, this is the certified report of names, addresses, duties, and compensation of public employees that work for the county. And we have the Indiana code there and kind of what requires this information to be filed with the state examiner. So there's nothing really new in that part of it. So if you've done the 100R before, you should be familiar with that. This has also not changed from last year. Basically, you indicate whether you offer a health plan, a pension plan, or other benefits to full and part-time employees. You have to indicate whether you have implemented a nepotism policy and a contracting policy. And once again, you will not send us copies of those policies like the other records you have. You will just retain them for when we come in to do the audit, okay? So that's still on there. Just to point out that if in 2012, in that 100R, you indicated that you did not have a contracting policy or a nepotism policy in place, you will want to, if you've adopted one now, in order to get your budgets on time from the DLGF, and some of you indicated you did not have one of these policies last year, you will want to go in and update that 2012 100R report. In order to do that, you cannot unsubmit on your own. You will need to contact us through this email address that's on the slide to get that report unlocked for 2012. Then you can make your change and resubmit. The annual financial report, you guys all know you can unsubmit that at any time, make corrections, and resubmit. but the 100R is different. You cannot do that on your own. This is the information that you're going to report on the 100R. It's basically all the people that are employed by the county the previous year. It's basically W-2 information, so I don't think it's near as complicated as the annual report is. Some of the things that have changed on the 100R is that if you're doing manual entry on the 100R, which I hope you're not, I hope you're uploading, but if you're doing manual entry on the 100R, there is an ability to automatically fill the address with a default address. Since you're reporting a business address, it may be the courthouse address that you use for almost everybody on your 100R report, and now you'll be able to do that a little bit easier if you're having to manually enter that. This is kind of a screenshot of what it looks like. If you click on the default address that you want to put in, you can put in the business address, the business city, the state, and the zip code. And this, when you click the apply button, it will apply this address to every blank record that you have in your 100R, and it will include this address for each new entry that you do on the 100R after you've set the default. So it sort of fills in all the lines so you don't have to type the same address time after time. Also new for 2013 in the 100R is an attestation statement that you have to do. It just certifies that the data is accurate to the best of your knowledge and belief. It does have to be signed by you, piece of paper signed by you, and it has to be mailed within 5 days of submitting it on the gateway. And then if you have to resubmit for any reason, we have to unlock the report for you, and you resubmit, then you have to do this again. You have to print this attestation statement again and mail it to us. It is part of the submission process, and you're not done until you've done that. So here's a little bit of what it will look like. This is the main menu screen for the 100R report. And you can see that it has the same submit the 100R button that you've seen before. It'll take you then to a screen that's a summary of the data that you've put in. So you can review that summary and then click the proceed to submit the 100R button if you think it is correct. Finally, you would click the submit this report button. And this is not efficient, all this clicking, but that's how it works. You will get to a screen that talks about the attestation statement and allows you to download the statement if you are truly done. If you need to go back, you can still make changes and go back to the main menu at this point in time. It will then download that the screen that looks like this, which is the attestation statement. And you can see that on your handout, I think the wrong date's, a different date circled. Well, it's the same date and time, but it's in a different place. But actually, this is the date we're going to consider it submitted as long as you follow up and do send us the attestation statement. So if you click the submit button on January 31st, which is the due date for the 100R, and you print this attestation statement, sign it and you mail it, January 31st, you have submitted on time. Okay. It will not change. That date and time will not change unless you unsubmit. You know, basically get this unlocked and then have to resubmit. Then that date and time will change. But otherwise, it is the date and time that you click that submit button. Even if the dog eats your attestation form and you have to print another one and put it in the mail later, it will still have the same date and time. So you'll still look like you're on time, okay? And you will be as far as we're concerned. Now, if we don't get the attestation form, you're not done. So it's still open and you're not on time if you don't do that. So we hope that that will be seamless for you, and we'll get you more information about how we're going to handle that as soon as we know how that's going to be logged in and sent and all of those things. But for your part, all you have to do is drop it in the mail to us. If we don't get it, but you've clicked the submit button, we'll contact you. Once we get them logged in, we're going to contact you, and you can say, well, I mailed it, it's lost in the mail. You can print another one and mail it, because it's still going to have that same date that you submitted, and we'll get that filed, and you're still filed on time. Okay? So I understand the mail's not perfect. Okay, also new for 2013, this is in the annual financial report. When you go into that part of the gateway, you will have some required pension reporting. We were so happy last year when we didn't have to do the supplemental pension report for the first time. But they went back and got a law and says now that we have to collect that from you. McCready and Keene fought against the statute because they know they will not have the information available to you to actually file for the preceding year by March 1st. So, but we still have the statute. So we've got to deal with it. There is an ability to do the proper reporting and meet the requirement, and the state examiner will then use this information, and he is responsible to deliver a report on this pension information statewide to the General Assembly. So it's not just counties, it's everybody. It's all the units of government that have any kind of a pension plan have to do this pension reporting. So we're just got the minimum of what basically the statute requires, and it's going to go into the annual financial report. Basically, it's going to look like this screen here. You will have check boxes for if you are a participant in PERF, TURF, the 1925 plan, the police pension plan, the 1937 plan, or the 1977 plan. You check each of those that you might be involved in. Most of you are just involved in PERF. And then, do you have any other pension plans in the county? Yes, almost all of you. I think there's only one county that does not have a separate sheriff's pension plan. So you will have other pension plans, and if you check that box that yes, you do, you will have more screens come up that you have to enter information on. So if you do have other plans and you click yes, you have to add that plan. So you add a plan, and you get this first screen here. This screen asks some basic questions. No matter what kind of other pension plan you have, it just asks you the plan administrator, some name, address, contact information for the plan administrator, and it asks you what type of plan you have, whether it's a defined contribution plan, a defined benefit plan, or a combination of the two. Most of the sheriff's pension plans are defined benefit, which means they end up getting a portion of their salary as their pension benefit rather than what the earnings are on whatever they contribute. But you'll have to look and see what type yours is. If it's a defined contribution plan, you're off the hook after this screen. You're done. If it's a defined benefit plan or a combined plan, then you're not done. And you will have another screen that will appear for you to enter information. The first thing it will do for defined benefit plans and combined plans is ask you if you've had an actuarial study. You answer yes or no. If there's no actuarial study, you'll be asked when you plan to have one completed. If there is a study, you will enter the information then on the next screen. And it asks a lot more information. And I know you probably can't read it, but just to give you an idea of what's on there, it asks you for the valuation dates, actuarial assumptions, contribution rates, the amounts of covered payroll, and a lot of things about the actuarial results of that study. We have talked with McCready and Keene. They are very aware of this statute since they had lobbied very hard not to have this statute in place. And they are going to try to get all of this information that they normally do give you, or the sheriff's department or the council. It goes somewhere in your county already. But they are going to try very hard to give it to you in a single report. But keep in mind, for this first year of reporting, they're not going to be done yet. So I don't know if they're going to go back and try to get you the last actuarial information all on a single report, or if that will just be for future. But they are going to try to get it on a single report so you don't have to dig through a bunch of information to try to fill out what's on the gateway. Like we talked about for the 100R, you have the same attestation statement for the annual financial report now. It works exactly the same. You go through and click the submit the annual report. You proceed to the submit the annual report, and then click one more time, and then you can download the attestation form. It looks exactly the same. But it's for the annual financial report instead of the 100R. Still has the date and time there, so if it's, as long as it's by March 1st, you're on time. Even if the mail takes even longer than the 5 days, 10 days, if we get it, we're going to consider this the date you submitted, okay? Now, if you do have to unsubmit on the annual financial report, that's a little more common. If you have to unsubmit, you got to do this again. And I apologize, I know it's just one more thing, but that's what we're going to need from you. Also new for 2013 is that you have the ability to upload any of the contracts you would like to be put out there on the gateway for the public to see. Look at the underlined. This is voluntary. And that's what all I'm going to say about that. Also new for 2013, we have made some alterations in the fund codes. I don't think it's really going to affect you, but we did have that law change that changed the extradition fund to the extradition and sheriff's assistance fund. So the fund number is the same, and then for the gateway annual report code, you know it's 6 digits, and so there's a 10 at the front for saying it's a standard fund. Then 1155 is your chart of accounts fund number. So 101155 is still the sheriff's extradition fund, but now it's been renamed the extradition and sheriff's assistance fund. So your coding shouldn't have to change, but the name that you will see when it comes up on the annual financial reporting gateway will be a little different. We also made some updates on receipt codes. There are a few more of these. This was in conjunction with DLGF. We are trying to use the same receipt codes, and they did go to using our receipt codes, but there were a few changes that they really needed to make it work with their budget and Logadaba systems. And so we have compromised and made a few changes on the receipt codes. You can see that R109, which was the alcohol beverage liquor distribution, was renamed ABC Excise Tax Distribution. The R114 was also renamed to be the Vehicle Aircraft Excise Tax Distribution. There are 2 new codes added, R136 for ABC gallonage tax distributions, and R137, which is the wheel tax / surtax distributions. Previously, these were reported as other taxes under the R108, so they were all just thrown in with the miscellaneous stuff that you had left. We need you to pull these out for the DLGF now, so you're going to have those 2 new codes. And then finally, the R416 garbage / trash collection and landfill charges was renamed garbage, trash, recycling, landfill fees and charges. So it's kind of got some things that don't pertain to you, but some things that could pertain to you all rolled into one. The implementation of the new chart of accounts was effective January 1 of 2013. So this should be the first year that we have at least a full year's information reporting on the new chart of accounts. And so for that reason, the Gateway Annual Financial Report has been updated to only accept the new chart of accounts numbers as the new standard fund numbers. So your codes should be on the new chart of accounts. If you reported on the new last year, your information will roll forward for your beginning balances and your fund information, as well as your grant information will roll forward. Grant names, you will have to input the other information, but the grant names should roll forward. If you reported last year on the 2012 annual financial report saying that you were going to use the old chart of accounts that you had in your county, then you will not be able to see anything. When you roll forward, you have to report on the new, so it's going to wipe it all out and not roll anything forward for you except the grants. So you will have to make that change this year. Now, if you do a vendor upload, it populates all the fields anyway. So it won't make a difference. You're just going to do the upload and all your fields will be populated. You verify that that's the right data. You don't have any adjustments to post, and then you go on to your debt, your pension, your grant information, your non-government units, and so on. Okay, so the vendor upload's the easiest once you get there. But so I encourage you to work with your vendor and see if you can get to the point where you can upload the financial data and save yourself a lot of manual entry. Where to find help. The user guide has changed a little bit this year. It's more web-based and interactive, and it should take you to the section of help for the screen that you are on this year. The user guide, you can get to it while you're on the gateway by clicking the help button. Also, you can find some help on our website. If you look down the left side of the page, you can click on Gateway, and it'll either ask you if you want $100 annual financial report, and you can click on the one that you would like to see the user guide for. As always, if you need technical assistance, you can email State Board of Accounts IT by annual reports at sboa.in.gov. You can also email IBRC for technical assistance, and their email address is there in your slide. It's also in the gateway. You click on the help. There is one thing I wanted to also tell you about the chart of accounts. You didn't get an update for this meeting. We have always updated some information for each auditor's conference. We didn't have any updates since the July 1 issuance, but remember, you did get a DLGF memorandum telling you about the new legislation that in 2014 you will only have one reassessment fund. You will not have two separate reassessment funds going at the same time. So as you close those reassessment funds, if you do it January 1st, we'll be sending you an update to the chart of accounts in December to tell you that that new reassessment fund number is at 1224. It's on the slide. If you are combining those in December to close out before year end, I don't know what that's going to do to your historical data. Most likely it's going to show both funds and then one going to a zero balance. But if it doesn't, if it really combines the two, just make sure that you have historically used 1187 and 1188 as your reassessment funds for the 2 years that are going. Just use one of those codes. If you don't have both of them and you've closed them into one, it doesn't make any difference to us. But you will not be able to use a standard fund 1224. So report under 1187 and 1188 if you close next year. If you close this year, you may still be using those 2 codes. If it's just not possible, you only have one fund, use 1187 or 1188. Next year we'll change it, but the standard funds will not be changed until 2014 for that new single reassessment fund, because that's when it really goes into effect. Okay. With that, I think I will turn it over to Dan Baston, who's here. He's joining us.